This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, welcome back everyone. So we have been through two videos related to the illustrative example. The first one we just started with understanding what illustrative example you are going to take a look at and all. And in the previous one, we came up with the initial set of questions which you can ask the stakeholders in the very first meeting that you will get to have with them. Okay, so one more thing that I want to tell you is, even before starting with these questions, in fact, when you get to know from your project manager that this is the project, these are the stakeholders and all, the very first thing that you can do is you can try to understand what are the expectations of the project manager. Like, you can ask the person, like, okay, can you tell me who the stakeholders will be, and can you tell me more details about the problem statement, or can you tell me any basic points that have come out of your initial discussions and meetings that you had with the stakeholders or any other senior folks from the client side. Get in these details, uh, whatever information that you can get hold of even before getting into the very first workshop with the stakeholders. Okay, and you don't have to really stick to what I'm saying also. Just think about it from a business analyst perspective. If you are if you're told that, okay, you work on this particular project to get the details sorted out, what all things will you do to get clarity on how to approach and all? Do all of those things. Simple thing. So for example, if you think that you can in fact get in touch with other business analysts who are there in the company to understand how do they approach their projects, might as well do that. If you want to lay your hands on existing documents which can give you an idea, might as well do that. In fact, we are talking about adding a feature to an already existing website, right? So there might as well be some existing documentation of how this entire website was built. If you have access to those documents, or if you can get that information by requesting the project manager, do that. So find ways which can help you and make use of it to get the information. With having all this information, equipping yourself with all these details, then if you go to the very first meeting, you are already prepared, you know in order to understand some basic terms which the stakeholders may be using, or to provide some suggestions based on whatever understanding you already got, and then getting into the right heart of the problem statement, getting into the questions. You can do that. Okay, so okay, now you have done that, you have had your very first workshop, you asked these questions, you got these answers. Now next what happens is, you got these questions as I was telling yesterday, in the previous segment, sorry. So what you did, you have listed down these details. Okay, and you call it as a minutes of meeting, and you send it back to stakeholders. Why do you do that? You have to do that to be aligned on the points. For example, say that you have made a list of all these points and kept it to yourself. You have not shared to the stakeholders. What happens is, there could be a mismatch in what you understand and what they have mentioned. Maybe they might have said, for example, okay, very good one. So 90K plus is what I'm mentioning as the high-end smartphones. Um, what if one of the stakeholder was not there in the stakeholder meeting or the workshop that you had, who was of an opinion that no, let's keep it a round figure, and let's consider any smartphone beyond 1 lakh as the high-end smartphone. Now this stakeholder was not there, mind you, in your initial workshop. Later he comes back and says, who told 90K? It should be 1 lakh. Then what happens is, if you document all of these things and send it back to the stakeholders, and then you receive a response, that will be a formal way of finalizing the requirements, or else there will be such sort of mismatch happening in what you understood, what they have expressed, and someone is not available, someone was there but not uh, available at that specific point of time when this details were sorted out. All these things can happen. So you create a minutes of meeting document and you send it to the stakeholder saying that, okay, these are the points which we discussed, and this is the conclusion that we reached. Also, now since we're talking about a e-commerce website and we're talking about a feature, which page which screen it should appear. If you have already thought of it, it's a very good thing. If you have not thought of it, let me tell you that we are talking about a user interface, a website. So the way the journey happens from one screen to another impacts the entire journey, right? So it is a good option to go with what? Wireframes. Got it? So when you go for the next second or third workshop to the stakeholders, why not create some sample, wireframes and show it to the stakeholders, saying that okay, this is how it looks. Is that okay, or do you want it to be fine tuned in this way and that way and all? Make sense? Okay. So today we'll spend on these two things. Okay. So we'll talk about minutes of meeting and we'll talk about wireframes. Minutes of meeting. Okay, let me get into this first. So minutes of meeting, what happens is, again, there could be multiple templates out there in the market. You can use any of the templates. There is no hard and fast rule. This is the one which you should use. If your company has a standard template, stick to it, or else follow whatever is really going to be more, uh, you know, uh, convenient for you as well as the stakeholders to use it. Okay. Now I have a sample template that you can look into. Okay, so now this is one of the multiple templates which can be used, so I'm sharing it as a sample right now. Okay, let's look into this. So here if you see, there's a title saying minutes of meeting, then you're giving the name of the project. Okay, then you're telling the date and time, you're adding that details here. So let's say something like September 23rd this year, and this time maybe 10 a.m., and then you're specifically mentioning the purpose, because okay, your project is about notify me, but you might not have discussed end to end, right? You might have discussed only few things. So just if you can summarize that and put it, maybe for this particular initial questions you can say, initial discussion on notification feature for out of stock product items, something like that. That could be your meeting purpose. And chair, what is a chair? It's nothing but you're telling who has actually facilitated the meeting. Usually it's the business analyst because it's a stakeholder workshop, right? So you'll mention your own name if you're the business analyst over here. Attendees are those people who have attended this meeting, so you'll mention the name of those particular set of stakeholders. And in fact, you can, it's there, okay. That is what the attendee is about. Then you have something called as apologies. Apologies is nothing but, let's say you actually required five stakeholders to be part of the meeting, and one of those stakeholders could not join due to some last minute change in their schedule or something like that. So you will specifically mention that stakeholder's name in the apologies section here, so that there is a record that yes, this stakeholder was not part of the discussion. Okay, so that 10 sessions down the line or 20 workshops down the line, if someone says that no, I don't know when this was discussed, how can you write about something which we never discussed in any of the workshop? You can pull out this document and you can say that no, this is the document where that point has been noted down, and here it is clearly mentioned, apologies your name, because you were not available that day. That in that way you're making sure that every minor point is considered. Okay, so that's about the apologies. Then comes the minuted items. Again, this is a tabular format which you don't have to really stick to. This, as I said, it's one of my initial projects, so it is not something full-fledged, completely correct and all. You just giving you an example of how it can be done. Okay, so here if you see, there are points. We don't have to really get into those points because we will discuss that anyways. And after mentioning those points, you're also mentioning something called as who. This again can be ignored, like anyways it'll be all, like every point, mostly it'll be relevant to all the stakeholders. Then you see there's something called as action items over here. There's a separate column called action items. What is it? It's nothing but, let's say that in our list of questions, we had a list of questions, right? So in our list of questions, maybe you asked, okay, what is your high-end smartphone segment? You're telling that you need it in a high-end smartphone. Then one stakeholder says 90K, other one says 1 lakh, another says 1.5 lakh. So there is a lack of uh, consistency in the answer from stakeholders. Then what happens? They'll say, okay, give us a day, Ranjit. we'll get back to you with the response in the next workshop. So here you have asked a question for which you have not received an answer. So what you do, you add that as an action item in the minutes of meeting, saying that the exact amount for the high-end smartphone to start from is not yet decided. This is going to be provided by this stakeholder by the next meeting. It is a pending item. Similarly, there could be a pending item on your side. Maybe they asked you like something like what is the maximum number of products for which we can display this notify me link feature. Maybe this question can be asked by the stakeholders, and you may not know the technical limitation, or you are not even aware if there is a limitation like that, or it can be applied to any number of products. You don't know as a BA when you attended the workshop with the stakeholders. So what will you do? You'll say, give me a day's time. I'll get back to our tech lead, get the answer. Tomorrow I'll reply to you, or I'll reply it on mail to you by the end of the day. Something like that. You'll tell them, right? So now this is an action item on you. So you should mention that also. There could be something which is pending from your side. You add that. There's something which is pending from stakeholder. You add that. So that becomes your action item. So you mention the action item, whose responsibility, I mean, who is supposed to give it, and then you mention the status. Status initially it will be pending. Okay, that is something. Then the final point over here is you're also giving the details of the next workshop. You're telling the time, date, and location when the next workshop is going to happen. You'll mention on this that in this document. And chairperson, nothing, the facilitator. So it could be your name again. So you'll mention these points. So this is a very basic format or a template which has been discussed. There could be a few more things which can be added to make it much more detailed. That depends. But of course, uh, all these things are of course important, but the most important part will be your minute items, wherein you'll mention the specific details which were discussed, and you'll say that these are the points which are supposed to be considered for the development part of it. Okay, so this is what a minutes of meeting document is going to be like. For any workshop, be it an agile or a waterfall, you can definitely use it to be on the same page with the stakeholders. Now what happens? Okay, you created a document like this, you sent it to the stakeholders. Now they'll go through it, and the expectation is they should go through it. And if any point is there which is not actually properly detailed out, or some discrepancies there in what is mentioned and what was given by them. For example, let's talk about the same thing. High-end customer smartphones, 90K is what you have mentioned, and they want to say no, no, it's not 90K, it is 1 lakh. Based on our internal discussions after the meeting, we came to a conclusion that it should be 1 lakh. So they'll add that comment here to that particular line. Wherever you have added that line in the document, they'll add a comment over here, and they'll say that, okay, this is the particular point, please update it. So you'll update it, and after updating, you'll send it back again, so that they'll say that, okay, we have seen the updates that have been done, we are clear with all the points. So that sort of to and fro can happen multiple times for a single minutes of meeting document. Okay, this is one thing. Now, I was also talking about something called as wireframes, right? What is it? If you have gone through the requirements elicitation techniques, one of the technique was prototyping. There we clearly discussed about what is a wireframe, what is a mock-up screen, what is a uh, prototype, what is the difference, which one is under the responsibility of the BA, which comes from a UI consultant, UX consultant. We have discussed in detail. You can go back to that video. Now, just to give you a gist of it, what we can do is, yeah, let's go to it. Again, the reason why I'm selecting Draw.io is only because it's a free tool. There could be a lot of other tools like that which can be used. You don't have to stick to this one. It's up to you. Or you might have your company might have purchased a licensed tool like Figma and all. Even that can be used. Any tool is fine. The purpose, as long as it is met, you don't have to stick to any tool, any one tool as such. Okay, so what you're doing here is you're trying to create a wireframe which you can use for discussing during the workshop with the stakeholders. Now let's say that this is the typical website, how it looks like. I mean the layout, the screen dimensions and all. Now you want to say that you want to add this notify me feature where? On the product details page, right? you want to add in this particular page. Now this page you already have, the website is fully functional, so you are able to refer to it by quickly going, seeing, and all these things. Imagine you're talking about a feature for which there is no website at all. The food delivery app that I'm talking about, considering the situation there is no food delivery app in the market itself, you're talking about you're creating the entire website. Will you have anything sample like this to show and discuss in the workshop? No. So there your wireframes are going to be the saving grace. That will give you a sort of something to represent and discuss based on it. Okay, so that is where your wireframes really add a lot of value. So what you do is you create all these things, and maybe you shouldn't be spending too much time on it because this is for representational purpose. You're just trying to have something which can be used to represent in the journey and take the discussion forward, right? That's what you want to do. So you should not spend too much time, but at the same time shouldn't ignore the importance of wireframes. These really sort out a lot of things. Let me copy paste this. What I'm doing, I'm creating a wireframe for the product details page. So this is where you show the major image. These are the multiple images for that product, and you can have some sample text over here in this text. Okay. So you'll say some details can be shown like this. You can actually play with this also. You can reduce this. Maybe there could be multiple options here. That is okay. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to just tell that this is how it looks, and then you want to also tell that you will add options for color, okay, and one more for size. Let me got this memory. Okay, now I want to mention that as a, let's put it like this. Okay, so what am I saying is I'm creating a sample. At this point of time the focus is not on having something which is very damn good looking and appealing and all. The purpose is to have something in place which can increase the clarity about how the thing should happen, how it should work. So we create something like this. Maybe you can play with the alignment and all later. Okay. So these are the four color options. Maybe you have the text of the color over here. And then I want to talk about the memory options. Now I'll say something like 128 GB in this box. I'll say 512 GB in this box. And then I'll say 1 TB in this box. Okay. Let me delete this. So and you'll have your add to cart, buy now, paying multiple EMIs and all those things and all multiple things. And below you'll have product specification details. Customers also purchase this segment or this product along with this that section. Maybe user reviews, ratings. You can have all those things. That is not going to really impact your notification. So you'll not focus on it. You are creating something which is going to really drive the conversation forward, right? Now here, now let's talk about, let's say that you want to implement it in this way. You want to keep something like this. Now this text I'll change to font color. I'll change to, how does hyperlink look? It looks dark blue, right? So this is how it is, and I'll say this one, and I'll say notify. Okay, I'm going to give something like this, and maybe let me add some sample text over here and all. Not really going to make any difference for me, and just to do that. and that you'll have something else also here. Okay. Again, I'm not creating a perfect wireframe. I'm just giving you an idea like how it can be done. It requires more time. The more time you spend, you can come up with more details about it, that and all. So let's forget about all that things. So create something like this. You can save it directly, or you can snap. Use a snipping tool and take a snap of this particular section and attach in your minutes of meeting document. You can do all of those things. In fact, you can add colors into this and all that things. You can do that. That is up to your how much efforts you want to keep into it. That's up to you. But what I have done is I have created a sample wireframe, and this I will use in the workshop tomorrow with the stakeholder. I'll say, you know what, we have to add the notify me, right? So how about putting it somewhere over here below that particular option which is not available. Maybe customer selects one of these things and this is not available, so I'll give the hyperlink here. Then the stakeholders will say, yeah, it's good. Or they may say, no, no, Ranjit, it is not good. Link may not be really visible, it is too small. How about adding a button called? Then that is going to add the discussion for take the discussion further. Now we are clear till here. Okay. Now again, if you think this is over, wow, okay, we have got with notify me, you're wrong. We have still a few more points to discuss. Okay. We'll cover that in the next segment. Okay. Now till now, what you have understood is you will arrive at a problem statement by getting the information from project manager, get more details from him or her, and maybe you talk to other stakeholder, other business analysts, or look at their existing documentation and all. Go to the first workshop, ask the initial set of questions, get the responses, then make it sure that after the workshop gets over, you put a fair draft of it and send that minutes of meeting document to the stakeholders to be aligned on the requirements. Okay, and then again, this minutes of meeting document can have multiple things. You mention the name of the project, the chair, the date and time of the meeting, the list of attendees, apologies, the entire detailed requirements points that have been discussed, action items, next meeting timeline, who is going to chair that meeting, that you'll mention in the minutes of meeting document. And we also looked at the wireframe, right? How do you create a sample wireframe? I hope you are clear till here. Again, I'm telling you, spend some time on this. Create a wireframe like this. Come up with the next list of questions that you can have in your mind, which you want to discuss if you are taking this project. And only after doing that, go through the next video. Okay, that will really help you a lot. Okay, we'll stop it here for now. Thanks, everyone.